Good day to you all. I'm Marco, and I'm going to present you a first slide with a whole bunch of Italian archaeologists, about 100 years old. The prominent man on the right is called Giacomo Boni, and one of those guys, called Roberto Paribeni, in Adulis, the ancient Axum port on the Red Sea, found this set of copper artifacts. I had a strong impression that at least one of those, or the whole set of those coin-like looking objects, might have been of Chinese origin. In fact, the size corresponds, and the square hole, noted to be used to file off the cast bronze, sort of little canal remnants to one side, correspond in size and aspect to a very, very huge millions and millions, billions of Chinese cash produced from 200 BC until about 150 years ago. Actually, there is no proof of this, and the Italian archaeologists reviewed them, insist they're not Chinese at all, while our colleagues here might say they could jolly well be theirs. The matter is up for debate. Certainly, having been found in Adulis, these, if proven to be Chinese, would be about at least 1,400 years old. What we know for certain is that this Chinese scholar and trader, Du Huan, did visit the Horn of Africa in 1734, because his nephew reported it in an encyclopedia. It happens that he fell in trouble along those very dangerous Silk Roads and preferred to go back to his native Guangzhou via Molin, most probably Malao or an Eritrean port, Luabasha, no doubt about that, and Boboli, which our scholars here know is Somalia. So those continents are known, and we managed to put our hands on this design by the Tilaun of an 1080 Chinese coin discovered in Arla in Inner Ethiopia. It's also interesting, as the coin comes from Kaifeng, or its area, which is in inner oriental China. It is about 1,000 years old. Actually, people didn't believe me when we recognized that design. In particular, the VA representative here, those days, some 5 years ago, wouldn't just take it and took me, Ahmed Zakaria, and Cherinet Lahon, prominent Ethiopian scholars, as liars. So that actually helped us in pushing me to go to Arla and find more coins. Two have been dated so far. They're definitely Chinese. They're about 1,000 years old. This one in particular, that was in my hands just there, 1040 AD, one Song Ton Bao, was filmed by Ethiopia TV and published. So how did these coins ever get here? Which sort of ships took them here? I put the coin in my hand still, next to the prow of the Jewel Muscat. One of our past masters, Tom Vosner, made this ship out of Franzelia africana, an African wood. It is a replica of an old African or Arab ship that was shipwrecked off Indonesia. So this brought me to think about Axum navigation. In Amharic, we have a name for the Orion's belt: up, top, left. It's called Aktacha Sechi, the giver of directions. You do not need, in a mountainous country like Ethiopia, definitely to follow astral navigation to walk about. So it was a navigation tool. Seeing this kamal, the wooden tool down on the left, and seeing that it has replicas of fingers at equal and natural distance, and knowing as an astrophilist that finger at the distance, arm distance, replicates 1.5, 1.6 degree distance, I put the things together, and I show you this 1973 Portuguese stamp that shows how the kamal, an Arab longitudinal instrument, navigational instrument, was vital for them, and it was taken definitely from the Arab. You see, the Arab man teaching the use of the kamal to the Portuguese navigator. The kamal, invented around 1000 BC, the present year, AD, was vital in longitudinal crossing. You could cross straight from one point to the other over the Indian Ocean by just setting the height of the polar star. This could have been easily done by Indians, Yamarites and Axumites, which we knew were doing longitudinal crossings, by just putting fingers at arm's length and evaluating the height of the polar star. Since about 10 years, since I first saw this map, the noted from our map in Venice, 550 years old, I was startled at the amount, about 60, a few dozens, of unknown names that it bears in Ethiopia. 3 very prominent names it bears in Ethiopia, which actually occupies most of Africa here, are Barara, HanBan and Sadai or Saba. A number of people have been looking at this map to try and find toponymics and lost names on the Ethiopian surface. We have been doing it very intensely in the last years via remote sensing and found that most likely Barara, HanBan and Sadai represent on the map a ridge across the Gojam Pass and the Entoto, present-day Menagesha, Mariam and Wachacha mountains. So we've been trying to put the map together, and about 15 toponymics on the map and actually varied geographical feature appear to correspond exactly. Just 3 people in Ethiopia have done some work following the steps of that man with the mustache. Remember the one in the first slide? Giacomo Boni. That guy invented remote sensing in the last year of the last century but one, 1899, when he overflew with a couple of balloons the Roman Forum. Soon, a clever man, world first pilot, O.G.S. Crawford, years in saving his ordnance, always surveyed very precious maps from the Nazi, was in Ethiopia also looking for Barara. He studied the voyages recounted by a certain Alessandro Zorzi. Now he was the founder actually of remote sensing via aerial photography. Now we have powerful tools, that thing, the quick burst satellite, the one of Google Earth. And people like Sarah Parkak and other experts have been finding a lot of sites, for example in Egypt. It is not difficult for us to see from satellite huge fortresses like this Pentagon up in Toto, not far from here. We'll be visiting tomorrow. So we claim, at least for medieval sites, Ethiopia might have smashed a world record with more than 100 sites found, about 50 actually verified on ground to be major sites. These are the ramparts of that Pentagon, the pentagonal fortress up in Toto, which helped us find more than 30, probably up to 100 hectares of ruins in a whole town around. The height of this, as you've seen before, is well above 2 meters, with some tracks passing 4 meters, and amazingly enough, it hadn't been noted. Please, this fortress is different. It's about 100 years posterior. It's in Cape Town, and this one is in Italy. These are the stellar fortresses, are the epitomes of whatever happened in European and world fortresses after this was built. This, as you see from this design, is actually contourned by a thick trench, about 2 kilometers long, but is pre-modern use of firearms. So it didn't have all those protruding spiky things. The town I mentioned that surrounds the citadel, especially to its east, has kilometers of walls, 5 or 6 rock-hewn structures, while the fortress itself is very elitist, very well made, and my Italian historian friends that have already visited since the discovery this early April have proven it can only be medieval. Archaeologist Sam Walker, Penn State University, for some time in Aksum, found actually some ancient plastering and plastering decoration techniques he calls Iberians or Southern Europeans. This makes sense. While the ornate stones we find around actually in great risk, some of these have been stolen or but just bashed up by the local kids, prove really a royal or elitist structure kind, sort of structure we're finding up there. The structure we find up there are very well made. We even find the colors of this site we like to call Barara, because Barara was the name of the ancient capital city of Abyssinia, and I'm personally am pretty convinced, you see a green and a blue here, that this can only be, as big as it is, an ancient capital of our Abyssinia. One thing I soon noticed that while the pentagonal fortress has views all over the north side, if enemies were approaching, in fact, as they were, it was destroyed, it's historical, in late 1530, from the east, they would find the ramparts of the back of the British Embassy of what we call Yekaterara. And on it, two little peaks at around 2,800 meters actually host two definitely medieval-looking fortresses, which archaeologists visiting recently have compared with the structures of Mvraz and Gorgora, actually about 200 years later than this, or even less, that are the precursors of the big African Camelot in Gondar. This is a parallelogram which has so far been considered to be a fascist fort called Talian Media, the Italian field. Well, actually, no way. Italian forts were not built like that. And definitely, we don't think the fascists ever had the time to build a perfect replica of a medieval fort while they were just waiting for the British. And we did find their position not far from here with two modern guns. So this is it. It's something we should evaluate and excavate, because the impression is it is medieval, but these kazans could be more modern. We have no idea. The site should be really inspected. I can tell you it is perfectly where it should be if it were to be related with the big medieval site up Ntoto. I did explore the whole area around Ntoto, and not far back, about a kilometer from the excavated church of Washa Mikael, here it is, proven to be medieval, I found a small hamlet. You saw it in the preceding slide, just 2 hectares of it, 15 houses, and that helped me recompose the whole map. On Mount Wachacha, we have a huge fortress, most likely medieval. Mind you, all the structures we find around here are pre-Battle of Chimbrakure, before a battle when the Christians lost hold of their Central Shore lands. All those things made sense. After that, Oromo came, and they didn't have this technology, actually. We even think we might have found the doors to Barara exactly where the design shows them, but this needs further investigations. One thing I can tell you for sure is that the whole site is more than 1,600 meters long, via a minimum of 300, probably up to 1,000 meters wide. And Metaro, the second capital of the Aksumite Empire, has been excavated. It's no longer than 380 meters across. I must say, I didn't discover anything. Probably this little Fiat of mine helped me, because it couldn't climb it up and took me right to the ruins, and then the radiator blew up once. I tell you, I can really easily distinguish the mini tortoise seen by Borelli design here from the ridge of what we call Barara now, which is not that shape and much longer. So we believe that Ntoto, Minlik's Ntoto, was where is now Ntoto Mariam mainly. We can witness via, for example, the voyager Borelli, that actually in Ntoto nothing was built of stone in those days. So here's the discovery. Emperor Menelik, not me or my little car, and contemporary voyagers did see the fortress, and in particular the trench around it, and witnessed this difference. Archaeologist Francis Sanfray actually distinguished the Ntoto and confirmed that Menelik had moved Ntoto to the new present site, renaming it. This is a hunter which had seen and described the trench, and the man before it was a member of the Windsor family who actually described the fortress as unattackable unless by modern firearms. One can of course distinguish, and should distinguish, more modern buildings built on older foundations, like this one, built about 200 years ago on older walls. We have to still investigate the Ntoto site. One thing I can tell you for sure, is that satellite views also show the destruction, in this case, of an amazing granary capable of holding more than 30,000 tons, which actually showed before its destruction. This is when I discovered it back in 2008 or 9. It had something underneath it, and local people tell me that they built the church where an older medieval church was. In some cases, the destruction is total, like this tower with a view, which we found by satellite views to have been picked stone by stone about 80 years ago. So here we are, with much need to study these ruins, and with a certain historical facts. These Christians and Muslims in Ethiopia had been fighting each other, and we find most medieval ruins are found in two blocks, the one of the North Christians and the one of the Eastern Islamic people. A major figure that was associated with these ruins is Prester John. Actually, Prester John was one of the engines behind European colonial expansion, the one we call Age of Discoveries. And we believe it was actually promoted by Abyssinians, being the active part in looking for all sorts of architects and builders in Europe. Much must still be done. Thanks for listening to my blubber.